Hello everyone, how's it going? It is Tyrnor as always, and as you all probably know, the new World of Warcraft Chronicle book just came out about a week ago actually, and I haven't done a video on it yet because I have been incredibly busy, and the video on it will come out tomorrow, promises, all of that, guaranteed. But today, as you all know, is the 1st of April, April 1st. And for some of you, it is Easter. I only get Easter next week because I live in Eastern Europe. But for others, it is just April Fools. And I wanted to use this opportunity not to play a joke on you, but rather to use this opportunity to do a different kind of video every year to talk about Star Wars. Now, I am a fan of the Star Wars universe, which may or may not surprise you. I don't just follow the Warcraft and sometimes StarCraft universes, apparently. In fact, I was such a big fan of the old canon of Star Wars, the Legends canon, that I had an entire shelf in my house with Legends books and comics. So you might think that the point of this video would be me to say, oh, I'm so upset that the new canon just retconned Legends and such, which is, well, first off, it's old news, and secondly, I was a little upset when it happened, but hey, I'm used to the Warcraft universe and their constant retconning of things. I had no problem applying it to Star Wars, I guess I could say. So I'm not judging the new canon of Star Wars by based on the fact that, hey, Legends is gone. I'm not going to hold that against it. And in fact, I do like a lot of the new parts of the new Star Wars canon, especially the Darth Maul storyline in the Clone Wars and in Star Wars Rebels. I thought that was one of the best done parts of Star Wars of all time, actually. But I am going to talk about one thing regarding the new canon, which is the villains and their entire lack of nuance, I guess you could say. Specifically regarding the Empire and pretty much every single person in the Empire. Now, the Empire in the Legends continuity was a xenophobic, was a and also heavily misogynistic, genocidal even society, but it still had plenty of good or at least admirable characters. Mara Jade, Admiral Pelion, Admiral Thrawn even. And there were also plenty of instances where, say, an argument would happen between a supporter of the New Republic and a supporter of the Empire, with plenty of solid arguments between each of them. The Legends canon is such a huge continuity that even miracles could happen, I guess you could say. But the Empire in the new canon is a weird one. Now, the Empire in Legends was basically almost, I could say, Nazi Germany in the terms of its politics, but the Empire in its new canon is not like that at all. It embraces gender equality, it does not really discriminate against aliens, well, not to the same extent at any rate. But the weird thing about the Empire in canon is that despite the fact that it is much more progressive, it is also much more evil. I cannot think of any single person in the new Empire in canon, with the exception of Darth Vader, obviously, and I guess one character in Rebels who is not evil. And I don't mean evil in the sense of someone like Emperor Palpatine, for example. I mean evil in the most cartoonish sense of the word. The kind of evil that doesn't make sense, is just there to show that this character is an evil person. For example, in the latest season of Rebels, there's a scene where some stormtroopers start shooting at the alien equivalent of cats, just because. Not only that, but take the novels in the new canon. The most glaring example that I can think of is the novel Bloodline. Bloodline is a novel that takes place between episode 6 and episode 7, which talks about Leia's political struggles in the New Republic Senate and how the New Republic is starting to fall apart, the rise of the First Order, and such and such. Now, in the New Republic Senate, in the novel, there are basically two political parties. One is the good side, which Leia is on, and one is the evil side, which which the people that are not on Leia's side are on. And pretty much every single character on the not Leia's side, the centrist as they're called, is portrayed as either arrogant or just a asshole or just plain evil, and they're all said, pretty much with just one single exception, to be supporters of the First Order. And while in the meantime, Leia's party is portrayed as the ultimate good, and the only disadvantage they might have is that they are not particularly united, and there are political squabbles between them. And in the novel, Leia collaborates with one representative of the opposing party, and honestly, he seemed to me like a very reasonable guy. But the novel portrays him as the most arrogant and the most, I wouldn't say evil, but the character who has a good character with a very flawed ideology is how the novel portrays him. And there's absolutely no nuance, even when there are, say, discussions of almost philosophical discussions between Leia and this character. The novel always portrays Leia as being in the right, even when the other character is actually providing arguments and Leia just sieves at him, basically. And another glaring example of what I mean is how they treat Thrawn in the new canon, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, Thrawn first appeared in the... Actually, I don't remember if he first appeared in the novel Timothy Zahn wrote, or if he appeared in the Star Wars Rebels series proper. But anyway, point is, Timothy Zahn, the original creator of Thrawn, wrote a novel for the new canon, basically detailing Thrawn's origins, where he also introduced a bunch of stuff from Star Wars Legends and basically gave a very compelling story. It's a very good novel, and I would definitely recommend it. But the Thrawn character in Timothy Zahn's novel does not really match with the Thrawn character in the TV show. Now, they're both tactical geniuses, and I think the TV show did a good job of portraying Thrawn's intelligence. Basically, the only time Thrawn gets defeated is when he gets defeated by stuff that is actually impossible to predict. Every other time, he defeats the rebels, which is in character, I suppose you could say. But Thrawn in the novel was a much more nuanced character who joined the Empire because he wanted to protect his native Chiss race by learning of the Empire and sending potential promising recruits to the Chiss. And he is also portrayed as a man who does not tolerate wasted resources, does not tolerate senseless loss of life and such. But Thrawn in the TV series is just another cartoon villain, a very smart cartoon villain, but an evil cartoon villain nonetheless. Just take, for example, his introduction scene. When he is introduced in the first episode of Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, one other character asks, "Hey, aren't you the Admiral Thrawn who did the whatever massacre and killed whatever hundreds of thousands of people?" And Thrawn replies, "Oh yeah, but those were basically acceptable casualties. Who gives a crap?" While in the novel, that massacre is portrayed, and that massacre is portrayed as a mistake of sorts of Thrawn, a mistake that he profoundly regrets. And it's just an incredible mismatch between the two characters. And this is incredible, and this is again incredibly weird to me, how the Empire of the old legends, which was basically Nazi Germany but with several not so evil characters, is contrasted with this progressive empire who only has evil characters, with one or two exceptions, who I would argue are pretty much evil on their own right until they snap and turn to the good side. And I can't believe I have to say this, but I found Newt Gunray of the prequel trilogy to be a more nuanced character than many of the Empire characters in the new Star Wars canon. And I think the reason this is a problem is politics. Now, everyone knows that politics in America are a very contentious issue at the moment, and obviously it has affected the arts and entertainment and such. But I think the creators of Star Wars are all belonging to more or less one of the political directions in America, and they are doing their best to use their specific artwork to talk shit, so to say, about the other political party, I guess you could say. And honestly, I'm not an American. I don't give a crap about the politics in America. I think both sides are incredibly stupid, and I don't really want to find real life political shit in my Star Wars. Now, obviously, George Lucas, when he first made Star Wars, introduced some of his own political views, but still, Star Wars at the time was a very good space opera that you could appreciate in its own right. It's timeless. You don't have to know the politics of that era to see it in a certain light. But the new Star Wars canon at this time is, I think, so impregnated with the political squabbles that are happening in America that it's just unbelievable. And I'm rambling. This is the point of this video, for me to ramble, because I only get to do this once a year, and I hope you've enjoyed my little ramble. Feel free to agree or disagree with me. And like I said, the new Chronicle video will be coming out tomorrow. But in the meantime, I would recommend that you read up on some of the old Star Wars Legends books. The Thrawn trilogy is especially good. Contrast the Thrawn trilogy with the Thrawn book of the new canon, and you can see that they are both masterpieces, I would say. And then compare the new Thrawn book with how Thrawn is portrayed in the TV series, and that's all I have to say. Okay. Thank you to everyone who has listened so far, and I will see you all later. Farewell.